everyone, and thanks for joining us for our session today. My name is Shayla Sander, and I'm the State and Local Government Channel Manager here at Atlassian. I've had the pleasure of working with both of our speakers today on their joint DevSecOps initiatives, and we're excited to talk to you about some of the secrets to making agency-wide DevSecOps reality for your organization. Today, I'll be speaking with Rich Schleep. Rich is the Chief Technology Officer at the Colorado Department of State and previously served as the Chief Information Security Officer. He leads the Colorado Secretary of State's engineering and operations support teams, building a strong technology vision with security built in from the ground up. He's also responsible for supporting DevSecOps initiatives to increase visibility, build trust, and to encourage learning across the organization. We'll also hear from Eric Piatt. Eric is a consultant for ReleaseTEAM, one of Atlassian's verified public sector solution partners. Eric's passion for positive organizational change, paired with his 25 plus years of experience in automation and optimization, fuels his enthusiasm for coaching and leading teams to improve their DevOps maturity. Eric thrives by strategizing with teams to understand their organizational culture, to measure and map their value streams, to identify and resolve their principal constraints, and then to help establish continuous improvement behaviors. So before they get started, I wanted to share this stat. And this number came to us from McKinsey Center for Government. They surveyed around 3,000 public servants who've been involved in transformations across 18 countries, and they combined this with the analysis of more than 80 global case studies for government transformations. And across the board, 80% of those surveyed, after recently completing a DevSecOps transformation, said that the transformation failed either partially or entirely. Now, a big reason for that is due to some of the systemic culture and process changes that need to take place in order for success to be fully actualized, which is a really big part of what we're going to talk to you about today. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to Rich.
Thanks, Shayla. We really appreciate the opportunity Atlassian's given us to speak today. As you mentioned, there are a lot of failures when it comes to DevOps. And as any business has, or any government agencies, there's a lot of challenges. We know that we were in a tough boat. We had a lot of things going on. There was a reason that we needed to improve our processes. There was a reason that we needed DevOps, as most organizations have. We had continual requests coming from all business units for more work to be done, with, of course, fewer resources and less budget. We had legislation. We have little control over that as a government agency. Legislation is always being passed, and it hasn't been real popular when we go to the legislatures and say, no, we can't do that. I've never, ever had that be the case. We pretty much have to do what they pass as law. We had requests coming from IT in all directions, walking down the hall, email, phone calls, counties calling in, needing more resources or needing help. There was a lot of different work being thrown at us with very little prioritization. On top of that, we had multiple ticketing systems, spreadsheets, manual processes, sticky notes, email. There was a lot of places that our work was being tracked, and we needed to really reduce that down. We also had various groups contending for our resources. The business division, elections division, administration, as well as the counties, as I mentioned, all want their stuff to be priority. On top of that, we came to some realizations as we started working with Atlassian. Well, guess what happened, of course, right when we started implementing this product? A pandemic. We had to deal with remote work, culture, continuing to deal with also not only our work environments, cyber attacks, the media. If you haven't noticed, there's been a lot of issues with elections showing up in newspapers and on broadcasts lately. And then on top of that, you have to remember at home, people are under a lot of pressure. Again, there was a pandemic, friends, family, finances, health. We came to a conclusion pretty quickly. Your people, no matter what tools you choose, are your most important asset. You have to take care of your people first, which we really felt Atlassian helped us do with their Jira product line. Look at your typical job posting nowadays. You have to know everything. It amazes me when we post this stuff, or I see other job postings. They want you to know Linux and Windows and development, software-defined networking, virtualization, of course, everything about the cloud. And it'd be good if you were a master chef to go along with it, and a project manager. So how do you succeed in that environment? There's really only one way, and that is to work as a team. So how do you work as a team? Well, in that environment, we got to remember all these pressures. Again, people first, your most important asset. And the way you put people first is having them work together, giving them the tools that they need, and letting them work together continuously, encouraging them to work together so they build a trust with each other. They know how to work with each other. It's pretty rare, as long as you continually work with somebody, you don't trust them more and more. Usually when you have trust breakdowns is when you have teams that aren't working together and they start building their own little perceptions of what the other team is doing. The minute you have people working together and sitting alongside each other, you tend to become friends and you want to see success. It's, of course, a continual process. So when we started down this journey, it was really important that we leave the team out and we just let one person define it. Of course not. So we pulled our business division, elections division, administration, information systems, the security team. We got everyone in the same room. We wanted to make sure everyone could state where they had issues, look at the current systems, the things that they liked in it, and understand the DevSecOps process also. Everyone in our office went through DevSecOps training. That's pretty cool. Not only that, they read the DevOps handbook and they read the Phoenix project. Most everyone read that. And then a lot of us read the DevOps handbook, which I thought was amazing. It was critical for our business units to be on board with our DevOps transformation. If we didn't have them on board, it's not an IT project. You can't really run DevOps just as IT. The business division has to buy into it and has to be behind it and see the benefits behind it. So we really focused on that. And again, we defined the problem as a team as we move forward. We found that there was 3 main areas that we needed to work on: prioritization, leadership, and communication. We needed to be our management to be able to reprioritize work, and most importantly, be able to say no. Sometimes you can't do effectively everything that's coming at you. You need to be able to say, no, we can't do that now, but we can do it later. Or no, that's not profitable to proceed with, and really have an analysis behind it. We also needed our ticketing systems, as I mentioned, to be consolidated. We didn't want stuff in spreadsheet and email. We had one engineer, Kevin. He was adamant about the fact that he was tired of having to go to a spreadsheet to track his time, and over to a ticketing system, and over to change control, all for one task. That's very consuming and kind of people get tired of it. And what do? They stop using the systems they're supposed to use if it's too cumbersome. So you have to have tools that work together, a single pane of glass. That's what we wanted and what we defined to support these 3 major areas: a single pane of glass with tools that work together seamlessly. We wanted to see where our time was being spent so that we could get rid of unplanned work. We wanted to also, of course, see the impact on future projects. And one thing I will note here, it was critical in these different processes to try and get champions involved, people that were excited about the tool set. And one of the main reasons we actually chose Atlassian over other tools is our developers and other teams were familiar with it and they were excited about it. So that was going to build that trust and that team environment. So we came down to some products that we needed as we discussed all those goals to improve our culture, improve our processes. One of the first things that we did when we looked at what tools we needed is we drew an as-is process map with swim lanes, showing the different roles and what people did to start with. We looked at that as-is to determine the things that we really wanted in the system and the things we really didn't want in the system. And then we defined in another process map where we were headed, what the to-be was going to look like. And that was critical to our success. And in the end, we came down to a tool set: Jira Service Desk, Jira Software, Confluence, Trello, Tempo Timesheets, Big Picture, and Okta. So Jira Service Desk, that was for those break-fix tickets. A one-stop shop where our customers could go in and enter something that was broken or wrong, and our engineering team could solve the problem. And then once the problem was solved, they could enter the information in Confluence, where we put video SOPs and other SOPs to hopefully build on our institutional knowledge. Jira Software, of course, to help our development process. Trello, we initially used when we had to move off-site to support remote workforce. We didn't end up buying Trello because we built that functionality into Jira Software and Jira Service Desk, but it was huge to get our teams working initially. And then tempo timesheets so we could really see where we were spending our time. Were we working on business projects, IT projects, or was it unplanned work? How much time were we spending on operational change? And in the end, we are moving towards using big picture so we can see that impact of all the projects together and do better at prioritization. And really, in the end, this tool set took us from walking to running. Some other keys that we found, just sideline notes, is DevOps, we believe in it. We believe in DevSecOps. And we didn't want it to be a buzzword. I know there's a lot of debate in the industry about that, whether it's a buzzword or not. Bottom line, who cares what you call it? It's continually improving your organization, getting your people to work together, getting your people to like each other because you're accomplishing cool work. It's fun to be in a place that has teams that believe in each other and wants to see amazing things done. We wanted to focus on the methods where we were focused on have teams give to each other. Rather than have, hey, I automated this cool thing to make my life easier, we wanted to go a step beyond that. We wanted those teams to focus on, hey, how can I not only make my life easier, but help the guy next to me, help that team next to me be more successful. Kind of the giving equals receiving principle, and actually truly caring about other people that you work with. And to do that, what do you have to do? You have to work together. So we wanted to maximize those daily interactions between those teams with the Atlassian tool sets. It just works. That's what happens as people start working together on a regular basis. So it came down again, as we talked about prioritization, leadership, and communication. And if you look at that DevOps handbook, we focused on the 3 areas: fast flow, continuous feedback, and high trust, as we've discussed. And if you, I kind of took it and the prioritization, leadership, and communication, those 3 areas we needed to work on, we mapped it out to the principles in the DevOps handbook. Make our work visible. Well, that's going to help you with prioritization. Limit your work in process is going to help you with prioritization. So it's just kind of a quick little guide that I put together to help people visualize how we were going to implement what we had learned. So looking at those areas with flow, Atlassian, as we've discussed, made our work visible across the organization. In our daily stand-ups, we could see what everyone was working on, and we could ask questions and see where we could help each other. It automatically allowed management to limit our work in process. If you see all the work that's happening, it's pretty easy to realize you need to focus on a few areas, get those done, and then move to the next instead of trying to get it all done at once. Because all the teams are working together on a daily basis, you're naturally going to reduce handoffs because the security team is going to see where they can step in and help with the project, networking, so on and so forth. And you're going to have that continual reporting to see how you're doing. It really has allowed us to have better project management and of course, look at the different areas where we could have automation so it wasn't taking us so long. So the next area was feedback. We wanted to make sure that we had feedback with our teams, that they were having the learning that they needed, that they were able to swarm and solve problems. And that's exactly what the Atlassian tools gave us. We were able to see problems as they occurred. We were able to work safely and work with each other and have that immediate swarm behavior if an issue did come up that we all needed to solve. And with that, it built into training in our liaison system. We were able to realize that you can't have an expert in every category, but you can most certainly have your experts train other people, kind of the train the trainer mentality. And we've really taken that as an organization and ensured that we have common locations for our SOPs, for sharing our videos, having wikis, chat rooms, and that Atlassian toolset's really enabled that so that we can work together and help each other. As you can see, both of these things, flow, feedback, and this working together automatically build trust. Most people, you're working with great people. And as you work with them more and more, you build that trust and you want to see each other succeed. And having those tools where everyone is learning, there's nothing closed off. People can learn whatever they want to learn and continue to grow in an organization. They trust each other and they want to see each other succeed. And it makes it sure you don't have a single point of failure. We really saw improvement across our organization for all of our daily work and people more excited about the things they were getting to learn and where they could go. They wanted more time training and less time doing busy work, more time focused on automation and helping each other out. One of the things that did help us with this, another tool that we chose to implement, as we talked about, was Tempo Timesheets. A great integration with Atlassian that allows us to quickly see where people were spending their time. We didn't use this as, hey, micromanagement, what are you doing today? The whole idea behind it was to ensure that our people were getting training, that they weren't spending their time on unplanned work. We were getting rid of that unplanned work. And we could see where we needed to focus to help our business units and IT be more successful. That liaison system, again, came into play when we started working with ReleaseTEAM. When ReleaseTEAM came in, we needed an expert. We had never implemented the Atlassian tool set, and we wanted to make sure we did it right from the start. And we didn't want a company coming in and implementing it for us and then walking away, because that doesn't work. I've never seen that in my career. So you hire a consultant, they come in and build it, and it just runs. You have to enable your people. And so we had our champions learn directly from an expert and continue to build our projects even after the expert stepped out on a continual basis. And we took those baby steps with ReleaseTEAM hand in hand, helping us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric.
Thanks, Rich, and thanks, Shayla, as well, and Atlassian for the opportunity to give this talk at the conference. We really appreciate it. It's neat to be able to leverage some of the side effects of the pandemic, if you will. We're out enjoying a little bit of a mobile lifestyle here, as some of you might recognize from my background. But anyways, one of the things I wanted to touch on that I think is really cool, kind of before I jump into the slide, is that if you refer back to the 80% statistic that Shayla referred to, or that she mentioned, what's so cool about that is the fact of how real that number is with what we've experienced with different clients. And I really want to put out a big kudos to Rich and the folks at the Department of State for the way that they started off their process, because they recognize that if we don't get the whole culture adopted right, if we don't get the whole organization on board, then we're only setting ourselves up for potential failure, as that statistic indicated. So obviously what Rich talked about and what they did so well was how they basically did that full across the organization engagement, not only within their departments, but reaching out to the other departments that were their customers and making sure that everything that was on the table, everything was on the table, everything that they needed was there from the get-go, so we could help them to design the right system. So the next thing that I wanted to make sure that you all understood that we did in this particular engagement is we really wanted to build some rapport and understand where exactly the Department of State was at, because obviously they did a lot of prep work before they even engaged with us at ReleaseTEAM. So what was really cool is that we took that time to go through and review that spreadsheet of all the requirements, the things that they wanted to avoid, the things that they wanted to have. I like to think of it from the strategizer perspective, the pains and the gains. What were the things that were causing them pain? What were the gains that they wanted to have in their system? In that process, it took a lot of time to build a lot of rapport, get to know the different players, basically jump on board and learning who the different champions were and working forward with them. Some of them didn't come on board until later in the picture, as Rich had indicated earlier on in his talk. But we really wanted to dig into what was their background. I was very excited to hear that Rich and team had some background in lean process, had background with Six Sigma, with the Phoenix project, the DevOps handbook, and that really helped them to understand some of the key things that we wanted to focus on, and some successful principles like, let's do this iteratively. Let's take baby steps in terms of how we're going to approach this.
So as we talked about, where did we start? We started with that as-is process map. We got everyone in the room together. We needed ops, development, QA, security, and our business units to figure out where we were at, where we were going to start. And with that, we built the absolute things we had to have in the system, the things we didn't want in the system, and the things that were okay. And just noticed our pain points and documented that before we even engaged a partner.
So what I love about what Rich and team did with that process is it then enabled me to say to them, hey, rather than me building this out for you or sketching it out for you, let's have your team build it into a lean diagram. And the lean diagram that they were most comfortable with was the role process map. And I might be using the wrong terminology, but I think you all understand what I mean, where it was a process flow, but it was focused around what role is responsible for what activity at what point in time. And so we took some baby steps and we worked through iterations of that, where basically they'd put out a sketch, we'd sit down and we'd talk through it and see what pieces were missing, what pieces we needed to address in the flow. A couple of the key key things that we were focusing on is we wanted to keep it simple, spend a lot of that time coaching and mentoring them through this process, thinking about it from a DevOps perspective and an Agile perspective as well. They wanted to make sure they had the visibility so that they could have that communication. So each of our basically different action points or statuses, what's going to become statuses, needed to be represented. Now, Rich, you talked a little bit about how gatekeepers, there was some back and forth in the organization about that. I'm going to want you to touch on that here in a second. But the big thing that I wanted to point out here is we basically took those baby steps. We focused on the fundamentals and then built up incrementally from there.
So as you mentioned, Eric, it was very important to us to not have a gatekeeper, not have a point in the approval process where one person was holding up an issue being solved. We wanted to make sure things continued to flow. And so we focused on having queues. We designed the system to where it could go to a group of people, they could approve it and work on it, where engineers could grab the work and see the stuff that was coming in the future easily without having an approval process. Our old system really slowed us down, multiple systems, where we get stuck in someone's court, and there was no reason the work couldn't continue to flow and move forward, except for the system that we had built around it. We had to avoid that.
So some of the cool things that we did is after we got that process map with the roles aspect, the lean process map in good shape, we then said, now we need to transition this into the perspective that's going to be fit nicely into Jira Service Desk or JSD. And so what we did is we leveraged a little bit of my background in assembly language programming, thinking of things in this aspect of a state machine, if you will. And that maps really nicely to the status diagrams that exist inside a Jira Service Desk. So one of the things that happened at this point in time, and it kind of went against part of Rich's initial request, but you got to learn to be dynamic and serve your client in terms of what do they need and what do they want. And so they hit a few glitches or hiccups just in terms of scheduling and things along that line, resource availability. And at this point, Rich asked me to say, okay, Eric, stop just coaching. We need you to step in, actually take some action, do some of these things for us and help us to move forward a little bit more, but then make sure to follow back up and coach them through what all you did so that they were enabled to be able to move forward with such an activity on their own in the future. So one of the things I really want to affirm Atlassian about with the Jira Service Desk is that diagrams model. That is so cool with how we were able to sketch it out in a really light fashion without building up the entire Jira Desk workflow, and use that to kind of sketch that model from the process map that we had into the equivalent of a state machine or status workflow inside of the diagramming tool. That allows us to do more of those iterative baby steps and really start to flush out how we wanted things to work and flow. What we did is we started with the JSD template and particularly the issue type around service requests with approvals. Initially, there was some thinking we might want some approval processes in there. As we started to think more to it, as we remember Rich talking about a little bit earlier, we didn't want gatekeepers. We wound up disabling the approval aspect, but still it was a great issue type to start with. So great kudos to the templates that are available there within the Atlassian product. So the next thing that we did before we move forward with really filling out the rest of the implementation is we made sure to cross-check our perspectives. We looked at the lean workflow, we looked at the status workflow, and we kind of went back and forth saying, did we cover all the pieces? We kept that lean workflow as kind of like our gold standard, and we made sure that we were incorporating the right stuff into the status workflow as we did it.
So as you mentioned, Eric, it was important to us at this point in time to keep moving. We didn't want anything holding us up, and note that at this point we had to change champions. We needed someone that had more time and could dedicate more time to the project. And although we would have liked to have had our ops champion, Jason Gowdy, involved from the very beginning, we had to bring him in here, get him up to speed, and then have Eric catch him up in the process, which ReleaseTEAM did an excellent job of. But the lesson here, don't let anything stop you. Keep moving forward. Keep working with the people that are excited about the project. Get new people excited, and make sure that you're enabling them to move forward effectively.
So one of the next things before the rubber really hit the road, so to speak, with taking all those iterative baby steps is we decided we were really going to focus on, let's go back to standard Agile, standard DevOps processes, the MVP, the minimum viable product. We can't put all the features in the product. We can't build everything into it right off the get-go before you roll it out. Let's take that Agile mindset and let's roll out something very simple and then start adding the features onto it later. So one of the reasons I point that out is that when Jason came on board as a champion, he started to grasp, wow, there's a number of things that need to get accomplished. How are you guys tracking all of this? So he quickly stood up with inside of Jira, a Kanban board. And with inside that Kanban board, he basically leveraged that to keep track of all the different tasks that need to be done. It provided great visibility and also allowed management to decide which ones were important and which ones weren't, so that we were able to then kind of judge where are we at and how much more do we got to get how much more do we got to get done before we can have that MVP or the next phase of the MVP rolled out. While Jason focused on that and coming up to speed with the Kanban boards, one of the things that I did is I focused on a lot of the more lower level stuff, the statuses, the transitions, the custom fields, particularly future work. I'll have Rich speak about that in a second. Dug into the triggers, the conditions, the validators, the post functions, a lot of the automations. Kudos to Atlassian here around the automations, because they rolled out, as we were in the process of doing this, they transitioned from the old model of automations or legacy option to the newer model. They incorporated that other product from the company that they had acquired. And let me tell you, this is a fabulous feature. I love the logic behind it, the simplicity, the graphic nature of it, really cool aspect to leverage. But we continued that consulting and coaching of the team along the way. Jason took ownership of the dashboards, the queues, the transition screens, the customer portal, and we kind of just worked back and forth throughout the process, communicating actually through some Jira Service Desk tickets and also through the Kanban board about here's what I did, here's how it fits together, and really leverage the tool to build that up.
As Eric mentioned, one of the big things that we needed was a way to focus on our future work. So we added some custom workflows and fields to allow us to handle future work. We didn't want to say, no, it can't be done. We wanted to say, hey, we're going to wait on that. We're going to put it down the pipeline, and we're going to let you know where its priority falls as we move forward with big picture for the organization. With that, we had also set a lot of goals, speaking of future work, that we wanted Eric and the team to accomplish. And they were pretty lofty. And when it came down to it, we also had a focus, which Eric was really good at narrowing us down to, a minimum viable product. Jerry Zimmerman really focused in on that as well, our project manager. The fact that we needed to get out the door what we needed to work on a daily basis, rather than having every bell and whistle in Jira working from the beginning. Because when it comes down to it, you got to get the work done, and we needed to focus on the fundamentals. And I can't say that enough. I think that's something that Michael Jordan stressed, I believe, is the fundamentals in basketball. If you don't focus on the fundamentals, all the bells and whistles won't really make a difference.
So the next aspect of where we're going with the project, we're going to be making those continual improvements and continuing to build up from the MVP and almost rolling out new MVPs each time, or more improved MVPs, if you will. But we're going to be dealing a lot more with the integration of different tools, especially as we expand into the development side of the house and incorporating things from the security organization, dealing with things on the dev side around builds, change management, a lot of automation and integrations between those different products, really removing a lot of the manual processes and really trying to improve the flow of their value stream.
So speaking of that, it became really clear to us that the other divisions were chomping at the bit to also have Jira. So why did we choose to implement it in IT first? Well, we wanted to make sure we knew it really well. We wanted to be the experts so that when we moved to these other divisions that wanted workflows, we could help them through the whole process and ensure that they were successful. You know, we've got needs across the whole organization. As they've seen IT's success, they want to implement the Jira workflows and products as well. Our human resources department sees it for onboarding and offboarding of employees, as well as other tasks. The operations support team that manages business and elections projects needs a number of workflows to help the organization succeed. And of course, administration, elections, and even our procurement department, so that we can move through the procurement process for IT and the other business units much faster using a tool where they can communicate, and it all integrates together. One of the things that I really loved about Atlassian, which I did not quite have a grasp on how well this was going to go, was how much these products integrate and how well they are designed to work together. It's made it easy for us. So even though we're going to have workflows in other divisions and our software development workflows and our operations workflows, it's easy to build a dashboard and filters so we can easily see all the work that's going across the whole organization and report on it without having one big workflow for everybody. It's very customizable, it fits each department so well. And then with Confluence on top of that, being able to document and have that institutional learning across the whole organization. And of course, big picture, so that we can move forward and really plan for future projects. So some of the biggest keys to our success, or the biggest key, was team. I didn't even want to do this presentation alone or just with Eric today, because we were both debated this. It's like we really wanted everyone to be able to speak about a different piece that they help with or their perspective, because this isn't an individual project. The whole tool set, the whole purpose behind all this is focusing on the people and the teams that make it happen. From the very beginning, Heather Morgan and Shayla Sander helped us with procurement. The as-is and to-be lean diagrams, we leaned on our experts in that category, Dana Williams and Dave Shepard. Our ops champion, Jason Gowdy, that we mentioned, our development champion, John Conniff, have been instrumental to our success. One thing I did want to mention that we hadn't talked about too much, we talked a little about the liaison system, but we didn't really talk about coaching and training. So one of the biggest keys is you can train in one person and they're going to be successful, or you can coach them. But it's key that you document that training, that you build videos. As you hire new employees, we wanted to make sure that they started in the same place as everyone else and could have that same training and that same background, so they were up and running quickly. And Dana Williams and Dave Shepard did an excellent job documenting, building videos to train other staff on how to use the system as we move forward. Without that, I don't think we would succeed. We focused on that staff mentoring system, having liaisons, and in the end, that glue release team, Eric did a great job working with all of those different teams and helping them work together to see success. And as I mentioned before, management's key. If your business units and your managers aren't behind DevOps, you're not going to win. IT can love it all they want. You've got to have support from the top down across the whole organization. Trevor Timmons, our CIO, Jerry Zeman for project management, Jeff Oliver, our development manager and deputy CIO, Leslie Markley, one of our systems managers. There was a number of people. I'm sure I left people off the slides, but it's key that you have their support in moving forward.
It was really a pleasure to work with the team, right? And that Rich just described. And let me just point out that we look forward to working with them ahead in all of the different tasks we've got planned. But also for those of you that are attending the conference, please stop by the expo hall. We'd love to see you at the Release Team booth. And obviously feel free to contact Rich with questions as well. We've got contact information for both organizations there for you at the bottom of the slide.
Thanks, Eric.